What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Redemption with Jaden. Sorry about the new lighting today, or the poor lighting, I guess. Or sorry, the side of my face is kind of dark, but just kind of need to got a little bit of a new setup with a new location, so I'm still trying to get all the lighting stuff figured out. But didn't want to miss out on getting you guys a video this week, so we're gonna go ahead and get into that. So any of you who have been to a tournament know that before you can actually start playing, you have to get your deck checked just to make sure that it's legal and that, not that people are necessarily going to be trying to cheat. I mean, it's a possibility, but usually if there's something that's wrong with the deck, it's because you forgot to count the deck again the night before, or you were just unsure on the deck building rules, and so always have to go through deck check. So what I'm going to be doing is kind of the same thing, except without checking to see if it's legal. I'm actually going to be checking to see, how the deck is, and like, is it going to be consistent and going with the reaching all the goals and stuff that you're going to be trying to do. I mean, obviously you want to try to rescue 5 lost souls, but with the different themes, there are kind of different approaches to do that. And so I actually got this deck sent to me from Rob Smith, aka Demon Hunter 85, and he was like, "Hey man, can you check out this deck and see if there, kind of give me your thoughts on it and see if there's anything that I could change, or kind of just things that you notice." And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. And I was like, you know what, maybe I can just make a video that's like this. So usually when you're a deck check in a tournament, you're going to be like, all right, your deck is good, and they're not saying, or they're saying that your deck is legal. They're not saying that like your deck is going to be better than everybody else's. But what I'm going to be doing is being like, okay, here, your deck is good, and obviously, my opinion is going to be, not the best. I mean, this isn't to discourage anyone from posting their decks on the boards and just send them to me instead, because I'm not like one of the highest authorities on whether your deck is good, but I can, I'd have enough experience with the game to help make some suggestions, and I kind of wanted to share some of that with you guys as well, just so you can kind of get a little more of an idea into the deck building process. I think that it can definitely be helpful to see what kind of you know, guidelines or templates for deck building are out there, and kind of getting an idea for from those, like how many counter cards should I have, how many speed cards should I have, which the answer is always more, but battle winners, that kind of stuff. What dominants work best in this deck, what lost souls work best in this deck, and so that's kind of the sort of thing that I'm going to try to do in these videos. So as you can see here, we've got ourselves a flood deck. It's got a flood survivor offense, which is certainly one of the top tier offenses, so kind of a fun deck to start out with. And then it's got an animals defense going on back here, so you can see they've got all these animals, and then Esau the Hunter, who obviously works well with animals. And in the most like competitive, like at top tables at nationals or something, like you're probably not going to see too many animals defenses right now, although I guess with Pride of Lions coming out at some point next year, maybe that'll change. I think Pride of Lions is pretty good, but just solo animals you probably won't see in a super competitive. They're not the most consistent or most powerful, I guess, than and so what I'm not going to be doing is like, okay, just get rid of animals and just do just Crimson instead with Nebuchadnezzar and the other kind of top Crimson characters, or just like straight Babylonians with Babylonian merchants or something like that, which those are all good cards, and but I'm going to try to stick with the theme that was given to me in the deck. It's not going to be a complete reworking. It's just going to be like, okay, well, in this theme, here's kind of the things that I've seen that work best. And I mean, honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot of animals or haven't played them a whole lot, so there are probably going to be some things that I miss, or things that I'm not as confident about. But I think that there are some ways to go about animals that are pretty good, and I think that Rob got a lot of the key stuff here with Esau and the serpent, and bear is pretty good. But before we get to that, I think we're just going to go left to right here, basically go through the Lost Souls and the dominance and kind of the utility cards and stuff, and then offense and defense. So with Lost Souls, the first thing I noticed is that, I mean, it's a Unity OT Lost Soul, which is good for Flood survivors, especially if you're going with the Tree of Knowledge, because you need Unity OT Lost Souls with that as well. And that works well because you get to utilize both Forbidden Fruit and the Serpent with animals. So I think that that's definitely a good start there for the Lost Souls, just going with Unity OT. And then he's got some of the good counter Lost Souls like Distressed. Punisher is pretty good. And then Remnant, obviously, for kind of the setup, card advantage kind of stuff. And same with Hunter and Darkness, get those out. Hunter is nice because it can also, once you're already set up and stuff, you can just get out Distressed or Punisher to kind of, counter your opponent's stuff. And then also the Hopper Lost Soul to make sure that you're generating enough Lost Souls and getting through your deck a little faster as well. So one thing that I would probably change, though, is the Shame Lost Soul. I don't think fits super well in the deck. Normally you want to keep like all of your heroes out, like all of the wives and stuff. They're all pretty good while they're in territory, and your attacks are going to be, Noah, Shem, Japheth most of the time. So like maybe you could set aside Ham for 2 turns and that would be okay, but I think that pretty much always you're not going to want to set aside one of your heroes, and just having the ability to set aside one of your opponent's heroes is maybe okay if there's like one hero in particular that your deck always seems to struggle with. But I think that this Lost Soul really fits more in themes like Persians that can benefit from setting aside your opponent's heroes, or from decks that have a lot of heroes that can usually expend one or more of them for multiple turns. But territory class heroes only work in territory, they don't work while they're set aside. So I think that usually you won't want to use Shame in a Flood Survivor deck. I guess the one potential benefit is you can set aside Ham's wife, and then when she comes back into play, you can look at your opponent's hand again. But yeah, I don't think that's necessarily worth it. And I think instead I would run the Prosperity Lost Soul. That's a really good card advantage. Lost Soul. Sorry, a Box Elder bug just got on my wall here. Maybe I have a Kleenex somewhere I can take them out. All right, sorry about that. So yeah, I think Prosperity is probably going to be better in most cases. And then in the current meta here, so yeah, let's take Shame down here. I'll move Prosperity over here. In the current meta, Punisher is pretty good, but I think that it might be even better to run the Wicked Lost Soul. It can really help to make your stuff work against like an Abigail or a what am I trying to say? Isaiah, like in the Throne decks with that run David, King Saul, Jehoshaphat, and then Isaiah to protect them all. Wicked can be pretty good. But in this particular build, as you can see, there are only 4 evil enhancements, and Seized by Babylon and Scattered are the only ones that are really going to be played in battle. I guess, I mean, you also do have Serpent's Curse and Carcasses, which are usually played in battle as well, alongside the Anthropophobia. Um, so, yeah, I mean, maybe, I think that Wicked is probably a better bet here, especially because one of the other cards that I think should be in here is Belshazzar's Banquet. Um, and that is good against, like, Abigail or something if she's in battle and you need to get around her, protect. So I think I would probably put in Wicked for Punisher, but that's definitely kind of a testing thing. Like if you find that your Wicked isn't, excuse me, your Wicked isn't really doing as much, I think Punisher, you could try putting that back in instead. But yeah, I think that's what I would do for now, or that's what I would try first anyway with the Wicked. Going on to dominance, pretty standard dominant list, although I think, so the original list that Rob sent me, you had a New Beginning instead of Mayhem, and I'm not sure exactly what his reasoning was for cutting a New Beginning and having Mayhem instead. Maybe it just wasn't consistent enough for him, or he was just finding that he was set up faster than his opponents 9 out of 10 times, and so didn't want to reset the whole game and just wanted the card advantage from Mayhem, since you can play a lot of the enhancements and stuff, and get characters down, so get some sort of free card advantage there. But I do think that a New Beginning is just too good of a card to use, or to not use, and use Mayhem instead. I kind of feel like Mayhem is the New Beginning of non-Flood Survivor decks. So if you are running Flood Survivors, I think a New Beginning is definitely going to be more valuable than Mayhem most of the time, just because of the huge swing potential it has. I did play the original version of the deck that he sent me in a test game against Breath, just to kind of see how things were going and everything. And a New Beginning, it, I guess, won me the game, but we actually realized after the game that when I played a New Beginning, my Esau the Hunter had been converted with Holy Grail, and that actually took out my Flood Survivor Unity with a New Beginning. And so when I played a New Beginning to win the game, I actually shouldn't have been able to play it. And so, yeah, we ended up just calling that one a tie. But in the case where my Esau hadn't been converted, it's just a huge swing potential. If you have Noah's Ark with Pitch and Gopherwood on it, then that's really great, because it's basically like you're starting the game over, but you already have Noah's Ark, so you don't need to find your ways to tutor it or anything. And then if you already have heroes in Noah's Ark, you can actually do something pretty sweet, where you can play. So in your upkeep, you can, or your Noah's Ark will trigger, so it'll be 1 turn, and then if you play a New Beginning in that upkeep, then it would restart that upkeep phase, and so it would trigger once more. So what actually I did in the game with Wrath was my Noah and my I want to say it was Shem, maybe it was Japheth. 2 of them were in my Noah's Ark, and they had gone through, or they had been there 1 turn, but I was kind of he had his board set up pretty well, and I didn't really have a whole lot of options. So I just went ahead and got to my upkeep, added a turn to the heroes in Noah's Ark, and then played a New Beginning to shuffle everything away except for my Noah's Ark and the heroes in there, and then that allowed me to trigger the upkeep thing again. So then both the heroes returned. I got to search my discard pile for some blue Genesis 6 through 10 cards. So they're like some, I think I got the Faith Among Corruption, and I think I got Anthropophobia. Basically just like a battle winner and a negate. And so like if you can time it right, it just sets it up super perfectly, so that you get 8 fresh cards, you get 2 heroes back, you get 2 enhancements, or however many heroes are in Noah's Ark, and then you get just so much potential energy, I guess, going for when you're starting over. So I think that Mayhem definitely gets cut for a new beginning, just because like especially in games where like you just get a bad draw and your opponent just goes off, a new beginning is kind of the reset button that that you need sometimes. And then also I think that Shipwreck, I think that definitely should go in Flood Survivor decks. I haven't played a whole lot of Flood Survivors, so I don't know if it's absolutely necessary, but I think that there's so much searching. I mean, like, Flood Survivors basically don't do, like, any drawing. It's pretty much all searching. Like, the only drawing card, I guess, is, like, Noah's Ark. You can draw 1. And then if you're using animals, like, Rob's got Covenant of Philistia in here, which isn't really a Flood Survivor card. It just happens to work well with the offense and the defense. That's a drawing card, but otherwise all of the like Flood Survivor staples are like all searching, or I guess Japheth is looking and then taking 1. Because of all that searching, it makes Sheol a very good counter to Flood Survivors, and so I think having an answer like Shipwreck is pretty important. Japheth also helps with Sheol. You can protect Lost Souls from evil cards, so if you do your searching in battle, like with Noah, you exchange for something, and then you end up banding in Japheth, then he'll be protecting the Lost Souls by the time that Sheol gets to actually resolve. So that can be good there, and if you time it right, then you're okay. I guess the other searching you would do is like with Shem's Wife, playing a Lost Soul from your opponent's deck, or even from your own if you need to, off of Shem entering battle. Then Japheth is good to protect Lost Souls, but I think that Shipwreck is pretty. I think that it's pretty important for getting rid of Sheol, and especially like search heavy decks. When you don't necessarily have Japheth, or if you, if he's being prevented or something, then kind of having a way to get around that, I think, is pretty good. The other option for that I was actually thinking about for this deck, I didn't put it out here, was using the Thorns Lost Soul. I actually think it has potential to be competitive, like in a deck with this when you're not running Sheol, which, like, I mean, you could be, because it's good to have that like Lost Soul underdecking ability to punish the searches, but it only adds animals to battle, or it only adds humans to battle when you use the add to battle ability. So you would basically only be able to add your Esau or one of your opponent's characters if they happen to match the brigade. So not being able to utilize that, I can see why Sheol isn't in this deck. But if you're not using Sheol, then you should use cards that counter it. And so maybe even Wicked could come out for Thorns, and that would stop some of the chump blocks like Death of Unrighteous and Suicidal Swine Stampede, and also Sheol. I guess I can pull it up here. Let's see, just so you guys know what I'm talking about. Let's see, those in Priests. Yeah, so the Thorns Lost Soul, it was actually just reprinted as a legacy rare in Lineage of Christ. Maybe I can go find that one because it looks pretty cool. Sort by set, there we go. There it is. Yeah. So just this one's a little easier to read, a lot less text, and it's more concise. Protect lost souls from shuffle, underdeck, and exchange abilities. So protects your lost or protects all lost souls from like Sheol and that kind of stuff, and it's also an Old Testament lost soul. So that actually could be worth trying out in here, especially because I mean there's not really no or any like lost soul manipulating abilities on in the animal defense. I mean, like you got firefoxes to protect lost souls, but that's just protecting them, so it doesn't care about thorns. Um, so yeah, maybe that would be a good enough answer. I mean, lost souls are pretty easy to take out with Son of God, but or negate with three wills or something, and especially if you're not running falling away, then maybe it's a little too risky, and having shipwreck is a good way to stop that. And I think that it's kind of a toss-up, I think, between taking out Chronicles of the Kings and Christian Martyr. There used to be a time where, like you say, take out Christian Martyr, and people would be like, what? Like, that's crazy. Like, that's a automatic battle winner pretty much every game. But in the meta right now, with Throne being what it is, being so popular, and usually having multiple heroes in battle, I mean, like Christian Martyr isn't quite as good, and so I think that I would probably take out Christian Martyr in the current meta, or because of where the meta's at. But as with everything else, it's all about just testing and seeing what works and what doesn't. Chronicles of the Kings, I think, is really good and really versatile. Takes out some of the curses that can, really hinder the offense. Like Wasting Disease is kind of another like search punish. That kind of is like Jonah. Whenever you search, you get to shuffle a card in opponent's territory, or just like something like Covenant with Death can be a little bit of a nuisance for Flood survivors, just because they have some of these territory class stuff. But Noah's Wife does really help, take care of Covenant with Death, which just negates characters and restricts players from playing enhancements unless a character is opposed in battle. Or it might just be a character is in battle. I don't remember which one it is exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think that Chronicles of the Kings is probably better than Christian Martyr, especially if you have some consistent, reliable battle winners and stuff. Like, especially if they're like on your characters, like Devouring Lion can reserve a human, and it's not. And like same with Wayward Sheep, you just block and you withdraw the hero in battle, so you can. There are ways to take out the hero in battle, and then if they have a negate, then you can just play Chronicles of the Kings to negate their negate. So I don't know. I think that's. I think that Chronicles of the Kings is definitely, more valuable in this deck just because of the flexibility than Christian Martyr, and then also. Because it lasts through the entire phase, you can play it in battle on offense to prevent evil enhancements from working, and also take out other idols and stuff. Like taking out your opponent's golden calf, for instance, is pretty good because that also stops your playing cards unless the character is in battle, playing enhancements. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Covenant with Death is if you're, or if a character is opposed in battle, and Golden Calf is just unless a character is in battle. And anyways, so yeah, I think that's where I would go with the dominance for now anyway. And then Tree of Knowledge I really like, just because it's a little more speed in the deck. You can take the Serpent or Forbidden Fruit from deck, discard pile, or reserve. So you got both Forbidden Fruit and the Serpent in the deck. And then, Forbidden Fruit, you can use it to look at your opponent's hand, and then grab one of your OT enhancements from reserve, and then next turn, if you play Tree of Knowledge down, then you can take Forbidden Fruit from your discard pile and then play it again to look at your opponent's hand again. And that seems pretty good. Just being able to look at your opponent's hand multiple times, and know what the best rescue or whatnot is going to be. Or also like recurring the serpent, like if you block with the serpent and then its ability somehow gets negated, and then the serpent is discarded, being able to block with the serpent again is pretty good, especially if you haven't used Serpent's Curse yet. You'll want to get the serpent back because this Serpent's Curse is a really good battle winner on the serpent. I don't think that there are really any other sites that I would include except for maybe Egypt. One thing I did notice with this build in particular is that there weren't really that many ways to tutor Noah's Ark, which is kind of something that in a flood deck you want to get Noah's Ark as quickly as possible. And I mean, like, I'm saying this even though there is, pitch and go for wood, it's a way to get it. 2x2 is a way to get it. Faith of Noah is a way to get it. Answer to Prayer is technically a way to get it, although you have to play it in battle, so it's not quite as good. So like there are all these ways, but basically like I think the most optimized flood decks will have more ways than just those to get Noah's Ark out of reserve, and so or just because the goal is like to get Noah's Ark out on turn 1. So one of those other ways, I think is Egypt would be good. I guess if your opponent does have something like Golden Calf or Covenant with Death on turn 1, then that shuts down your 2x2 and your Faith of Noah, so then you're relying on getting to your pitch and go for wood. And that's not quite as consistent. You want to get Noah's Ark as early as possible because most of your heroes are going to be benefiting from Noah's Ark being under your control. I guess like Shem's wife, you need Noah's Ark for the soul gen. Japheth's wife, you need Noah's Ark for the add to battle ability. Japheth, you need it for looking. So it's all about getting Noah's Ark as early as possible. And so Egypt is definitely an easy way to do that, just because it's it's a site, so it's going to be harder to negate than most other things, like these territory class enhancements, for instance. So I think I would probably find a spot to put Egypt in, but I mean, there are also other things that we'll talk about, like Reverence and Awe is another pretty good option that can actually, if you add both Reverence and Awe and Egypt, then you can use Reverence and Awe to search for Egypt, which searches for Noah's Ark, so you can get extra value there. And the thing about Egypt is that it, if you already draw Noah's Ark, it's not necessarily a dead card. You can still search for Storehouse, which is another really good fortress. So like, even though you're putting so much more weight on these tutors for Noah's Ark, they're gonna have value in pretty much every game, just because you're going to be able to use them to get Storehouse if you already have Noah's Ark or something. And like some of them, no, I guess Pitch and Go for Wood is the only one that goes to discard pile for it. But yeah, anyways, yeah, I think for fortresses, I mean, this is pretty much as you need for Flood Survivors. You can actually use Noah's Ark, Ark of Salvation, the Prophecies of Christ one, in the deck as well, if you really want to. I don't think I've actually seen anybody with a Flood Survivor deck do that, but that's another pretty good fortress, and it's Genesis, and it can hold a blue Covenant, which you've got a couple of those, so could be pretty good. It would probably just be a reserve card, and like, it's basically just like if your opponent is able to get rid of your Noah's Ark and your Pitch and Go for Wood or something. Um, Artifacts, I think Endless Treasures, I mean, is really putting a lot of weight on Endless Treasures in this deck, which is probably a good thing. Endless Treasures is definitely one of the best artifacts out there right now, because you can get so much value just by it's basically just a free 2 cards, because you get to activate one of your curses or idols that are pretty good. Like Golden Calf is in reserve here for that very reason, and all the curses and Captured Arc as well. I think as long as we're on the topic, and yeah, I guess these curses here as well. Pretty much, I mean, like the only one that you would actually want to activate as an artifact of these 3 is Honey from a Lion. Carcasses is not terrible, but I mean, if you're wanting to take an animal from your reserve, you're going to want to do it with Covenant with Philistia instead, so that you get the draw 2 there. And it's a much better battle winner, especially with all the multi-brigade and dual icon cards in the current meta. And Serpent's Curse, like I mentioned before, is just a really good battle winner on the Serpent. But Honey from a Lion, I'm not super convinced on this card. Like, I mean, yeah, it's like perfect for animals, or like that's what it's meant for. But I don't think that it's really like fast enough for type 1 right now. I think that maybe if you've got like a big like turtle deck with animals and everything, then maybe this is okay. But I think that in most cases you'd rather have like all the curses active or Golden Calf active, or one of your covenants to do some cool stuff. And like Honey from a Lion is okay, but it's just not quite consistent enough, and it's not as flexible because there's no and you can play it in battle, and it does work the same way, but just once, and you're not guaranteed to hit something, and you only have 4 evil enhancements in the deck. I mean, I guess like you can hit the other curses and these dual alignment enhancements as well, but it's not going to be quite as consistent, and I think that it's one of the cards that could be cut. Maybe that's what you can cut for Egypt, or like Belshazzar's Banquet, or also, I mean, the deck is currently at 53 cards, or that was the list that I was sent was at 53, so that's one of the cards that can maybe be cut, bring it down to 52. I mean, ideally the deck would probably be at 50 if you want it to be the most consistent and competitive, but 51, 52, 53, those are all still pretty good places to be as far as making sure that you're getting to Noah's Ark right away by drawing one of your tutors or something. So yeah, I think that I would probably cut Honey from a Lion, and then in reserve, going through the artifacts and curses here, I think you could probably also cut either Captured Arc or all the curses. There are a few artifacts that give Flood survivors trouble, but I don't think there are too many that are like, oh, this is a huge problem, we have to deal with this right away. And I think all the curses is a pretty good answer to most artifacts. And then Captured Arc, I mean, is obviously also a pretty good answer, but it's not quite as reliable, since they can have multiple artifacts active, like one in their fortress and one in their artifact pile or something. So you might not hit the right one, or the one you want to. So I think that maybe I would cut Captured Arc as well, and since you're that way you're not doubling up on the artifact destruction or kind of obstruction, maybe, where you can just get all the curses if you need to, and then you also have 3 Woes and Chronicles of the Kings as kind of backups for the answers to those. So Yeah, that's probably another one that I would take out, and that frees up some space in the reserve here, which we'll maybe utilize a little later. Um, as far as the covenants, the rainbow, obviously, Flood Survivor staple, just because it's basically like a Samuel's Edict, but Flood Survivor style, and it cannot be negated if a hero is in Noah's Ark. So um, if your hero is harmed somehow, or like basically the best use case, I guess, for Flood Survivors is like you've got Noah, Shem, Japheth in battle, and then your opponent just drops scattered, and they're like, oh yeah, we got him. Then you put some or all of your heroes, at least one of them, into Noah's Ark, and you add Japheth's wife to battle. She's a 3/5, so pretty small. You're probably going to get initiative, and then you can just drop the rainbow, because you've got at least one hero in Noah's Ark, and you can just negate and discard their evil character. And yeah, that's going to be pretty strong for that. And then also, there is the artifact side, which you can potentially use if you really need to. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use the artifact side of the rainbow, but it's there just in case. In case you need to grab the flood out or something and you don't have storehouse, or I don't know. Kind of Philistia is obviously more geared toward the animal defense. As you can see, there are 4 animals in reserve here, so you can actually get a lot of value out of this with basically just drawing like 2 cards every turn, for I guess like 2 extra cards every turn. So that's another reason why I think Honey from a Lion can be cut. It's like I'd rather just have Covenant with Philistia active and get those, the animal from reserve. So another blocker, another option there, and the 2 extra cards. Covenant of Prayer, I think that this is actually a pretty decent choice right now. I mean, like, there are a lot of cards that are now banishing cards from discard piles, or Confusion banishes cards from your deck, and it's still relatively popular. I haven't seen it a whole lot lately, but it's still out there, and especially because people, I think, aren't using Covenant of Prayer as much because there's a lot more reserve access that's more specific, and you can kind of optimize for it. Then Covenant of Prayer can kind of be a sneaky, like, oh, you banished my Son of God from my discard pile, thinking that would stop me from using Second Coming to search for it again. But now I'm going to activate Covenant of Prayer to search for my Son of God, play it, then it goes back to discard pile, then I play Second Coming, and you just get a free rescue there, which is pretty good. I don't know if it's quite consistent enough for that your cards are being removed to make it worth playing. I think, like, if you were using like Book of the Covenant in your deck, and you had an open and reserve slot, Covenant of Prayer would probably be a good include there. But I think that is probably one of the cards that I would cut if I were to try to get it down to like 50 cards. Oops. Or if I were gonna cut something out, just because like there aren't really any cards in reserve that I'm gonna have trouble like getting access to, and like if I'm using Covenant of Prayer to take a card out of reserve, like, it's probably not going to be quite as efficient as if I were to use like Forbidden Fruit to take an OT enhancement from reserve, or Endless Treasures to get one of my curses or idols out, or kind of Philistia to get the animals out, just because those also give you other benefits, like looking at your opponent's hand, or drawing two. So I mean, it's kind of nice if you have it, like, if that's first turn option to grab Angel of the Winds, then sure. But with Remnant and Hunter, I think you'll be okay on that front. One thing I guess I didn't mention with the Lost Soul is that there's no Exiles Lost Soul, which is a pretty popular Lost Soul in the current meta, just because there are so many. Like with Book of the Covenant, you're usually going to have a couple of Covenants in your reserve, and then you can also grab those with Exiles, and you just get lots of value there. Especially like I Am Creator is the most popular play. So I think like if I were to make like a, I guess like most top tier like flood decks that I see do use the Book of the Covenant build with I Am Creator and Reserve to get Noah right away, um, or even like Covenant with Abraham, and you can just get Angel of the Winds right away. But with animals, I do kind of like having more reserve space for animals, so that Covenant with Philistia, you can utilize that more. Um, so this is maybe kind of a cheaper way to build a deck. Like if you don't have a Book of the Covenant, then um, this is certainly easier to do it this way, and you don't have to worry about um, getting the more expensive cards, and you can still get a good decent amount of value with the having the animals in reserve instead of the Covenant build. There are definitely a lot of other ways to get Noah out early, which we'll kind of talk about as we get to the offense. So, kind of moving on to the dual alignment stuff. Leviathan, obviously, like one of the best animals there are. I thought this was a pretty cool card. It was the winner creation by Josiah Beers when he won Type 2 player in 2017. And super cool art, and definitely lots of um, potential for fun with this card, especially like in Job decks where you can use Peace and toss it for 12 on offense, but also getting the value on defense, and also just a huge body for your opponent to deal with, but they can't use like Angel of the Lord or something because Leviathan protects itself from opponent's dominance. So I think that's pretty pretty obvious include in this deck. You're pretty much always going to be playing it as an evil character, since there really isn't a benefit to playing the enhancement unless you like really need the numbers for a mutual destruction or something. But there's no tossing in this deck, so maybe if Colosseum made it into the deck, which honestly I was kind of thinking about, like with Colosseum Lion, and there not being a whole lot of like cannot be negated stuff to play in battle. Like, I mean, Answer to Prayer is in there, and Scattered is in there, but those could be replaced with other things. I guess the main problem with Colosseum is that it would stop Bear and protecting Lost Souls from rescue unless Bear is discarded. It would stop Japheth, his protection from, or protecting Lost Souls from evil cards, which is pretty important. But actually, with Noah's Wife, as long as you have Noah's Wife on the table, Japheth's ability cannot be prevented. So, yeah, maybe that would be good. I mean, that's a good way to shut down your opponent's Scattered and similar abilities, and then tossing a Leviathan for 12. That's pretty sweet. So yeah, I guess I didn't put it or include it in my kind of little sideboard here, but I think Colosseum could probably have a spot in this deck. It makes Colosseum Lion cannot be negated, so that helps there. But yeah, I think another thing with Leviathan that you pretty much always want to include with any deck with Leviathan in it is Fire from Heaven in the reserve. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in there, and this just makes it so that if a Job evil character is in play, you can negate an underdeck a card except a Lost Soul. So basically, even if like Leviathan is the only evil card you have in your hand and your opponent comes out, you can just block with Leviathan and you automatically get some value. You get an answer to their battle winner as long as it can be negated, or you can take out one of the heroes in battle or something if they've got numbers, if they're banding or something like that. And then you also get an animal from your deck. So yeah, I think Fire from Heaven definitely should go in the reserve, and then maybe that's what replaces Captured Ark. Um, I think that, yeah, that's probably what I would go with for now. Anthropophobia, Forbidden Fruit, 2x2. I think these are all pretty good, like Flood Survivor staples, especially with animals. 2x2 is pretty sweet because you can, grab animals, or if you already have your Noah's Ark and your storehouse, or you just want some animals instead, you can go ahead and grab some from your deck or your reserve, and you're good to go. Forbidden Fruit, like I said before, get that offensive, look at their hand and see what you have to deal with. And then I guess there is potential to use it on defense if you play it on the Serpent, which is your only pale green evil character in the deck. But I guess one other card that I actually just remembered now that should probably be in the deck is Beasts of the Earth. I think that this is actually a pretty strong card because of all of the territory class characters that are out there right now that are especially annoying, like Jonah, Babylonian Merchants. Jonah really hurts Flood Survivors because you can shuffle their stuff and it's not harm in the eyes of Noah's Ark, because you can or because harm is only opponent's evil cards and opponent's neutral cards and your evil cards. So since Jonah is a hero, then you wouldn't be able to put your heroes into Noah's Ark if they shuffle them with Jonah. Not that you would necessarily want to anyway. I guess that's kind of a thing you have to consider when you're using Noah's Ark, is that your heroes are stuck there for 3 turns, so if you let them get shuffled or like underdecked and scattered, you might be able to get them back sooner than 3 turns, especially like if you have Noah, who can just go ahead and exchange for them. But yeah, I think Beasts of the Earth is actually a card that should be in the deck and take out some of those pesky characters, and it's also an Antediluvian, so you can play the Flood on Beasts from the Earth and you get the benefit from it there as well, or you can or it can be used as a battle winner and then wipes all the evil cards in play. So yeah, that can be pretty good there too. And then what else I'll be able to use? Forbidden Fruit. So yeah, I think there are definitely some evil characters that, or when we get there, that I could see being cut for Beasts of the Earth. Or is it? Yeah, Beasts of the Earth. Yeah. All right. So yeah, then Anthropophobia. Yeah, just kind of a versatile. It's a negate on defense and a battle winner on offense, and yeah, I think it. In any blue crimson deck, this card would work pretty well. Heroes, not going to spend too much time talking about them, since there are only 8 Flood Survivors, and you have cards like the Rainbow and A New Beginning that are Unity Flood Survivors. Then you probably don't want to run any heroes other than these 8. But Shem, I guess I will talk about using the old Shem versus using the new Shem. This is the new one, which I think is probably a better fit in Flood decks now, just because getting that protection in battle is just another thing for your opponent to have to deal with. And I guess also, as long as you have Noah's Wife out, then Colosseum would not be stopping Shem either, which is yeah, I think pretty good. I had the old Shem pulled up here for reference. So he allows you to basically take out some of your opponent's evil cards in their hand or territory, but it's their choice, which is not quite as good. I mean, like, and it's reliant on them having more evil cards than you, which won't always be the case, especially if you're using stuff like Faith of Noah and the Flood to wipe out all evil cards, and you're probably going to try to keep some of yours in your hand, and then you'll eventually have to put them down, and you will potentially end up with more evil cards than your opponent. So Shem's ability, or the old Shem's ability, isn't always going to work. And he also protects flood survivors and territory from evil cards, which can be good. But you kind of want this ability as more of a like constant thing, like Noah's Ark, Ark of Salvation is a pretty good one. That like if you weren't using the other Noah's Ark in this deck, it would probably fit pretty well. And then he also only bans the old one only bans the Japheth. So the new one you can ban to any Flood survivor or a Meek Genesis hero. There are no Meek Genesis heroes in this deck, but being able to ban to any of the Flood survivors is actually pretty good. Like if you don't have Japheth, then you can bring in Ham's Wife or something to look at your opponent's hand. Stuff like that, or bring in Shem's Wife to bounce your opponent's evil card. So I think that the versatility with Shem is pretty good, and then he's also got the star ability, top decking a blue Covenant from deck. A good way to get your Covenant of Philistia out quick to start getting that value, or to get the rainbow to have a battle winner for your next turn. Just make sure that you don't shuffle your deck between using the star and when you're drawing next, since with Flood survivors it probably won't be until your next turn, unless I guess you have like Covenant of Philistia or Endless Treasures, and you go to your reserve with Endless Treasures or something. So yeah, I think that the new one is probably the right play. It's debatable, but that's what I would stick with. So Faith in Noah, like we talked about before, it's a good way to get either your Pitching Gopher Wood or your Noah's Ark, since you can grab an artifact or a fortress, and then you can also grab Storehouse, obviously, if you already have your Noah's Ark or already have your Pitching Gopher Wood. And then also is a pretty sweet battle winner and just like board wipe of evil characters. Although if you have your Leviathan out, your Leviathan's 13/13, so Faith in Noah would not kill your own Leviathan, which that's something to remember. You get to at least keep one of your evil characters around. Even Faith of Sarah is a really good way to get your Noah or to recur your Noah, since you can go to deck or discard pile. Recurring your Noah can be really important because he's the way that you have to recur your other heroes, by exchanging to your discard pile. So I think that's a pretty good include. Getting Noah right away is almost as important as getting Noah's Ark right away. Maybe even more important, just because he just helps you get set up so fast, and some cards like, I guess Japheth is kind of the main one that cares about the number of Flood survivors you control, and so as quickly as you can get all 8 Flood survivors out as possible is best, because then Japheth is getting the most potential value, or the most ability to look at the cards and grab the one you need. Answer to Prayer, I'm not really sure it fits in this deck. I think I would probably cut that for something like Offering Your Son or Reverence and Awe. So I was kind of going back and forth on these two. Like maybe you could do one of them for Covenant of Prayer and one of them for Answer to Prayer. I know taking out the prayer is no good, but Reverence and Awe, like I said, is pretty good. You can get out Tree of Knowledge, you can get out Noah's Ark or Storehouse. You can also get out Egypt if you end up wanting to include that as well. And then also, it's a way to banish your opponent's discard pile from the game, which can be pretty good, especially if they're running ways to recur their enhancements. But just remember to be careful to watch out for their Covenant of Prayer if you think that they might have it in their deck, which it's still a possibility. Obviously it was in this deck before, and it probably could stay in the deck if you think that there's still room or you still want to use it. So you got to watch out for your opponent having Covenant of Prayer if you're going to remove their Son of God or something like that, or banish, I should say. Offering Your Son, I really like this card. It's got a star ability, which is pretty sweet. You can discard an evil card from hand and draw one. Just like a little value engine right there. Like if you've got more evil characters than you need or something, you can just let one of them go and get an extra card. Or I guess if you just have an evil character in your hand, you can just discard it and draw one, and then you can play Offering Your Son to take an animal from your reserve. And if you've got these 4 in there already, then you can do just grab one of those to replace the evil character you discarded, basically, and you get some more value from there. But better case, you can play it right away to get your pitch and go for wood, make sure that you're getting Noah's Ark as fast as possible. You can grab your Endless Treasures, get some more value there, and get your Golden Calf activated or something like that. Or even just grab your Covenant of Philistia. I mean, that's better than taking an animal with Offering Your Son, because if you get Covenant of Philistia out, then you can take an animal and draw 2. So I think that Offering Your Son is definitely a good include in the deck, and I would put both of those in there. You can putting all of your eggs into the territory class basket, but you've got lots of other cards that you can use in battle. I mean, Covenant of Philistia, I guess I didn't really talk about the enhancement side, but withdrawing all evil characters is pretty good. The game I played against Ruth, he was actually using Philistine, so I was able to get quite a bit of value with this card because he wasn't able to negate it. And then you're usually going in with a band anyway, so having cards like Faith Among Corruption, I mean, definitely it's Flood Survivor staple as well, but having that as a negate option is pretty important. I'm talking too much, my throat's a little scratchy now, but that's alright. We're on to the defense, so we're almost there. The Serpent, probably the best animal in the game, just because you can stop your opponent from being able to play their Son of God or Second Coming or Angel of the Lord or whatever. If you think they have Angel of the Lord in their hand, then you block with the Serpent and they can't play Angel of the Lord, and then you have initiative to do whatever you please. Usually Scattered is pretty good because then if they have multiple heroes in battles, you make sure that they can't negate it. If they do something, or if you play something like Seized by Babylon, then maybe they can interrupt the battle with something, and then like let's say they're going with the red hero, you block with the Serpent, and then you play Seized by Babylon. Since it is cannot be negated, then they can just play like Jordan Interrupted to interrupt the battle, so interrupt Seized by Babylon, and then play Bravery of David to negate and discard the Serpent or something like that. So it's best to have stuff that cannot be interrupted to play on the Serpent. Something like Belshazzar's Banquet especially is good, because then you're taking the Serpent off the table, like makes it much harder to negate, and then you're getting the battle winner as well. Or Serpent's Curse, obviously, like I mentioned earlier. Colosseum Line is not a card that you see very often, but I think it does fit pretty well in an animals defense, especially if you're running some of the newer lions. Like the Devouring Lion, I think is pretty good, since the owner has to reveal a star card to match a brigade from hand instead, which you're not going to have, or they might not necessarily have very often, especially if they're running like a New Testament deck or something. But unfortunately, it is just reveal a star card, so you're not really losing like value there. So I mean, it's pretty good. I think it is a good card, and especially because like the other lions, you can hit any human with it, so you can hit their defense as well, and then they don't have the option to reveal something instead. So let's say like you have Belshazzar's Banquet in your hand, you just want to Devouring Lion take out one of their evil characters, they don't have a way to negate it or instead it, and so then you have initiative, you can just play Belshazzar's Banquet and clear the way for your offense. So I think that that's pretty good, and alongside that, I think Lions would be a good include in the deck. I think it got cut for probably some other things. I think that it's probably better than like Wayward Sheep. Wayward Sheep can be good just because you can get the usefulness from it. But I don't think there's really a reason you'd want to give it to your opponent, just because there's like really no way to choose it to block, and even if it does, it has like a built-in battle winning ability, so you'd have to negate it or have some way to get around it. The good part about it, I guess, is that it doesn't have like an instead part, so that makes it different from Devouring Lion and Lions, where they can instead the ability with something, so they have to negate it. But since it is withdraw, then I think that Lions here would probably just be better overall, because you can discard. If they don't have a good dominant, then it's more impactful, I guess. Their heroes being discarded. Although Lions is restricted, I guess, to only humans. So whereas Wayward Sheep is just withdraw a hero, so if they're going out with some angels or something, then Lions doesn't get quite as much value. But I think that Wayward Sheep has its place in some decks. I think if you're using Nebuchadnezzar, for instance, Wayward Sheep would probably be a good include, just because you can underdeck it, and then next turn you can block with Nebuchadnezzar, search for Wayward Sheep, and add it to battle again, and then underdeck it again, and basically just keep that going as long as your opponent doesn't have a way to negate it. But yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily the best. It's not cannot be negated or anything. It doesn't have the best numbers, and played at 3/6. I guess 6/6 Lions is worse, but I think Lions fits a little bit better in the deck and with the theme of the deck. Like if you have Hungry Lion that bans to a lion, you got Colosseum Lion that bans to lion, and Negev Lions, which draws based on the number of your lions, and eventually Pride of Lions is going to be in an animal deck like this, so kind of just get ready there. Speaking of Hungry Lion, I think that Hungry Lion would actually do best in reserve, and Negev Lions would be better in the deck. My thinking for this is that having characters that like negate and stuff, or like even just discard an enhancement, are better in reserve for something like lurking. So scenario, I guess my opponent comes out and I block with, say I block with bear or something, and they play something to discard my bear. I can interrupt it with lurking and then ban to an evil character from my reserve, so I can go grab my Hungry Lion, and then I can discard the enhancement that they played, and since it was interrupted by lurking, then it would not reactivate. So can go ahead and take that out, or just negate a good card if you need to. If you got like a hero or something that's winning the battle somehow, then you can interrupt the battle and negate their good card, and then you can also ban to another lion. So basically take out their threat with Hungry Lion, and then you can ban to lions and basically put them on the defensive, make them have to have an answer, or just ban to Negev Lions and get some drawing and some value, taking out good cards from their hand. So I think that that's a little bit better. Similarly, you can also abandon the Great Fish with lurking, and then negate some whatever their battle winner is that way, and then also put them on the defensive by setting aside their hero. Or another strategy to go with, or something you can do is if they play a battle winner, you can play lurking and abandon firefoxes from reserve, and then as long as they've drawn, exchanged, or searched this turn, you're protecting the lost souls. So make them think that they won the battle, but you play lurking, bring in firefoxes, and then your evil character gets discarded, but firefoxes is protecting the lost souls. So it's a good way to chump block there with lurking. So I think that that's probably the lineup I would go for on defense here. I still think like Beasts of the Earth would probably fit in here pretty well. And I'm not entirely sure which evil character I would swap out for it. Maybe Bear. I do like Bear's ability, his. Let's see if I can get around to it here. No. Whatever. About halfway through his ability, protects lost souls from rescue unless Bear is discarded. So basically it makes sure that your opponent has to have something that discards him. If he gets banished, or if he gets underdecked or withdrawn or something, lost souls are going to be protected. The only problem with Bear though is that it's only a 6/6, so with all the banding in today's meta, it means that you have to have something to win the battle still, because their numbers are probably going to be bigger than yours. So it works if you're playing Seized by Babylon and they interrupt it with Council of Abigail or something and try to underdeck your Bear, because it cannot be interrupted by a good card, and then that would or Bear would still protect the lost souls from rescue. But I think if you were to add in Colosseum, I would cut Bear and put in Beasts of the Earth instead. Maybe even cut Bear anyway. I think Bear is good in some decks, but not the best. I think that Beasts of the Earth is a better option here. And going at the evil enhancements, obviously lurking is very good. Scattered is very good. Wages, maybe not quite as good in this deck. I mean, like it does get Shipwreck, it does get Chronicles of the Kings, it does get like Carcasses, Anthropophobia, I believe, and then a bunch of these evil characters. And they give Lions as a discardability. Let's see, Colosseum Lion has a discardability. So I guess even Esau has a discardability. So I think that Wages is probably a good fit. You get a lot of value here, and you can. I guess there's not much that you can get from reserve. Hungry Lion, you can get. I think Belshazzar's Banquet belongs in the deck, and I would maybe even cut Seized by Babylon for it. Maybe. I don't know, that kind of puts you light on battle winners. You've got some of the other ones over here. But, Wages can also search for Belshazzar's Banquet, whereas, it can't search for Seized by Babylon. So, I think that, these are all good in the deck. If I were to, if you were to do Colosseum, go that route, then Scattered and Belshazzar's Banquet would not be quite as good. So you might have to find some other options there. Seized by Babylon is a really great card with Colosseum. I think Betrayal is another pretty good option. Let me go ahead and pull that up here. I really like Betrayal with Nebuchadnezzar, since if you have it turn 1, you can just go ahead and grab it, play it, underdeck that card from your opponent's hand, because it probably, they're just going to have 8 random cards from their deck, basically, or less, because, one of the heroes they attacked with. So odds are they won't have too many good cards, and if you can take out the one they need, then you basically just win the battle and draw 3 cards. So it's, that's a pretty sweet deal right there, and I think it works, similarly if you draw it early enough with Esau the Hunter, or then you can play it off of him, or also just play it on one of your characters with initiative, like the Serpent, and obviously you can also use it to underdeck the hero in battle, which is pretty good as well. It's another hand look option too. It is territory class, so If you just want to see what your opponent has in their hand before you attack, then you can do that, and don't even need the don't need to use the draw 3 part. So yeah, I think that's the route I would go if I were using Colosseum. You know, if you are using Colosseum, you don't have to completely build your deck around it. Like, you know, take out Scattered and Banquet. You know, maybe taking out one of them would be good, but you can rely on the fact that if you have Colosseum out and it's really hurting your opponent, then they're going to want to take it out. And if they do have a way to negate it, like 3 woes, or a way to discard it, then they're probably going to do that. And then you'll be able to still get some value off of these. And I guess looking at the reserve, some kind of last notes. I think the Great Fish could come out for Behemoth. I think that Behemoth is a pretty good character to have just negate an opponent's card. It's, I mean, basically effectively the same as the Great Fish, so like I guess there's merit to both of them. The Great Fish could also be utilized on offense to play on Noah as a battle winner, if you really need to. But it can also be used on offense by any of your heroes to negate your opponent's battle winner or something, and then protect your hero from capture. So I think I would lean towards Behemoth. It also benefits from Leviathan, protecting it from opponent's dominance. So if your Leviathan is in territory, then it's still protecting Job animals from opponent's dominance, and takes Behemoth. It also gives another card that Leviathan can grab from reserve. If you block Leviathan once, you probably want to grab Fire from Heaven. If you block Leviathan twice, the second time you'll probably just, you can still get some value grabbing Behemoth. So Great Fish is okay. Definitely, like if you don't have a Behemoth, then definitely put the Great Fish in, by all means. But I think I would run Behemoth just because of it works better with Leviathan and most of the offensive stuff. Being able to negate cards. Let's see. We've got Scapegoat in here as well. I'm not entirely sold on Scapegoat being in the deck. I mean, like, if you really feel like you're behind, or like you're being soul droughted and you can't find any of your soul gen options, then like maybe Scapegoat is okay. But I think that Flood Survivors are like aggressive enough where Scapegoat isn't necessarily as good. So like you probably don't want to risk, or you don't want to lose out on one of your rescue attempts, I guess. Like, I guess maybe if you're just like waiting to draw Son of God or the Second Coming, you're already at 3 or 4 or whatever, then you can search for Scapegoat and use it to stall your opponent, make sure that they can't block or can't attack. Then maybe that's good, but I think actually you could take out Scapegoat for Beasts of the Earth, and put Beasts of the Earth in your reserve instead, or like one of your other evil characters, you can put them in reserve instead, like one that would be better to ban to with lurking. I guess Beasts of the Earth probably wouldn't be that great for lurking. I mean, Beasts of the Earth, it only takes out a hero in territory or a character in territory, so like maybe putting Lions or Devouring Lion in reserve would be better than put Beasts of the Earth in the deck. But I mean, definitely try out Scapegoat if you think that it's if you think that Scapegoat is better and kind of having that option, or like you use it in most games, then sure, go for it. It's definitely a good option to have. Really kind of slow down your opponent if you need to. But in my mind, that's kind of what a new beginning is for. If you're at a point where you would give up one of your attacks to prevent your opponent from rescuing, that probably means you're at a point where you want to play a new beginning and just reset anyway. So that's probably better than using Scapegoat. Scapegoat is a good animal, and in some decks definitely has a spot, but in this one I think that Scapegoat's probably not quite as good. If you're using like a Job Animals deck, then, you know, sure, go for it, because Job is a little bit slower and, you know, might not want to attack every turn. The Flood, yeah, pretty straightforward why you want to use that. Firefoxes, same thing there, really good chump blocking evil character and an animal, fits super well. Angel of the Winds is basically your, you know, go-to remnant take. Take Angel of the Winds from your reserve. That's the only way, I believe, to get Angel of the Winds out of reserve is Remnant, but that's probably okay. Like, I think this is one of the situations in which it's okay to only have one way to get a card out of reserve, just because Angel of the Winds is kind of so you know, useful for the strategy. Like, you get Angel of the Winds out with Remnant, and then you just go ahead and exchange to Noah, and you're preventing evil, or you're negating evil characters and getting your Noah out right away, which I think is really strong. I guess Covenant of Prayer was the other way to get it out in the deck. So, you know, if you do keep Covenant of Prayer in the deck, then you can go ahead and yeah, get some value there too. If you get, you know, first turn Covenant of Prayer and you need a way to get to Noah, then Angel of the Winds, you know, it's got the job covered for you. Abraham, Servant to Ur, it's another card that I really like, but I think I would probably cut it for something like the First Sacrifice. It really depends on the way that you're approaching Flood Survivors. I kind of tend to lean towards the, like, look at opponent's hand and see, you know, the ways to manipulate, or like see what the best way for me to attack is, and you know, think about everything that they have and could have there. And so the First Sacrifice is another way to do that. And you can, you know, take out one of their evil cards in their hand, or you can use it as a battle winner if you need to. But you already have, you know, other ways to negate stuff, like Faith Among Corruption is a good negate. You've got the Rainbow to negate, and just some other options there, Behemoth as well. So I think that I would probably use the First Sacrifice instead of Abraham's Servant to Ur, just because you get a little more value pre-attack. You can see what they have, how to deal with it, and take something out, importantly. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much, we covered everything here. Yeah, like I said, this isn't like, you know, it's not guaranteed. Or after the edits I've suggested, you know, the deck isn't guaranteed to win 100% of the games, obviously, but I am kind of just, you know, hoping to give up a little of my deck building thoughts and you know, experience here. I'm obviously not one of the or like I'm not a super common like Flood player, like, you know, Jay Chambers and Greg Miller. Those guys are kind of more gonna have more experience with Flood and playing with it. I do have some experience playing against it for sure, but I think that you know, this is definitely a good start, and I really like the potential of the Animals defense, and I can't wait to see how much better it gets with Pride of Lions. I can have a little pop-up on the screen here of what that card is. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and, you know, feel free to send me deck lists if you want to be, you know, featured on one of these. I can't guarantee that I'll do every one of them that I get sent, and I can't guarantee that I will do them, you know, do the ones that I do end up doing within like a reasonable, well, you know, reasonable amount of time, or like I can't guarantee I'll get to it right away. You know, I kind of want to vary the content, so I'm not going to do a deck check every week, obviously. But I do think that it can be kind of fun, you know, a little bit different than just playing a game. So I hope that you guys found this helpful, and let me know your thoughts, and certainly if you have any other suggestions for the deck, I'm sure Rob would appreciate it. So we'll catch you guys next week, and have a good one.